Peaky Blinders Season 3 continues the dramatic and intense story of the Shelby family. After the upheavals and fierce struggles of the previous season, Thomas Shelby has now solidified his power and expanded his operations. However, with greater power comes new threats. Hostile forces from both within and outside the country are targeting the Shelby family, pushing Tommy and his gang into dangerous confrontations. Amid the changing landscape of post-World War I England, the fragile balance of power and complex political intrigues will test Tommy's loyalty and determination more than ever. 2 years after the events of Season 2, Tommy and Grace have enjoyed a warm and loving relationship, having a handsome son named Charles Shelby before getting married. The episode opens with the lavish wedding of Thomas Shelby and Grace Burgess. This significant event marks not only the official union of Thomas and Grace but also a crucial milestone in Tommy's life. The wedding takes place at the new Shelby family mansion, attended by many important guests, including both enemies and allies. Additionally, a sad backstory for Grace is revealed. Her previous husband committed suicide for unknown reasons, allowing her to rekindle her romance with Tommy. At the wedding, the stark contrast between the two families is evident. One side is rough and rugged, embodying the gangster lifestyle, while the other side is refined and aristocratic. This difference wouldn't have been so significant if Grace's family didn't include cavalry officers from the British Army, who were notorious for arriving late during the war, resulting in numerous casualties. Their presence irritates not only Tommy but also the entire Shelby family. A tense emergency meeting is held in the kitchen to address everyone's attitudes. Despite trying to keep his brothers in line, Tommy himself loses his temper in front of Grace, but they quickly reconcile to avoid ruining the wedding. Meanwhile, despite the joyous occasion, business matters continue to plague the Shelbys. A Russian man named Anton Kaldin contacts the Peaky Blinders to initiate a currency exchange that Tommy had secretly planned. Specifically, a Russian monarchist wants to buy weapons from the Peaky Blinders for their war effort, with Winston Churchill acting as an intermediary. However, this transaction violates state policies and must be kept secret. Duchess Tatiana Petrovna is set to arrive in Birmingham that night to handle the $10,000 transaction. The meeting between the two parties goes smoothly, but suspicions arise that the man is a spy, prompting Arthur to kill him. It is revealed that a larger force is manipulating Tommy, compelling him to participate in these schemes to avoid losing his business profits. As Tommy grapples with these troubles, other Shelby family members are engaged in their own side relationships. Polly meets a sincere artist, and Michael begins following in his brother's footsteps by developing a relationship with a new acquaintance. Additionally, it's revealed that Arthur is married to a woman named Linda, whom he obeys completely. In the next episode, we gain more insight into the operation that Tommy is involved in. The weapons the Russians want to buy are actually heavy armored tanks. The two individuals directly dealing with Tommy are Reverend John Hughes and Grand Duke Leon Petrovich Romanov, a Russian aristocrat. These two are consistently troublesome for Tommy. After a private meeting with Tommy, Romanov gives him a sapphire as payment for killing the spy in the previous episode. Romanov then conspires with Duchess Isabella Petrovna to silence Tommy once their business is concluded. John Hughes, upon learning of Tommy's connection with Ada, who has communist ties, begins threatening Tommy by targeting his family if he continues to associate with her. Despite these work-related complications, Tommy continues his side activities, such as organizing a charity event in the Shelby family name and giving the sapphire to Grace to wear at the event. Meanwhile, John faces his own troubles. During Tommy's wedding, Lizzie starts seeing Vicente Shangretta's son, who is part of the Italian mafia. Arthur and John burn down one of Vicente's restaurants as a warning. Vicente personally visits them to deliver his own warning. Infuriated and unwilling to back down, John confronts Vicente's son, an act that Tommy secretly approves of, but it leads to unforeseen consequences. At the charity event, Tommy has a private meeting with Hughes and his associates, where he learns that Tatiana wants to inspect the tanks. Tommy refuses and warns Tatiana that this is a bad decision. Ignoring his warning, Tatiana reveals that the sapphire Grace is wearing is cursed. Alarmed by the bad omen, Tommy convinces Grace to go inside and remove the necklace. However, before they can act, Vicente's men arrive for revenge, and Grace is tragically shot dead. In episode 3, following Grace's funeral, Tommy is a shadow of his former self. Family meetings are now held separately, which causes dissatisfaction among John and Arthur. They believe Tommy favors Michael over his blood brothers by assigning Michael legitimate tasks while they are stuck with dirty work. Specifically, Tommy orders Arthur and John to capture Vicente and kill his wife in revenge. After assigning these tasks, Tommy and his son travel to Wales, where they meet Bethany Boswell, a woman knowledgeable about the occult and superstitions. Tommy asks her if the sapphire necklace is indeed cursed, and upon learning that it is, he hands it over to her. Feeling a sense of relief, Tommy and his son return home. Meanwhile, Arthur and John successfully capture Vicente but spare his wife's life. At the place where Tommy plans to vent his anger on Vicente, Arthur kills him to prevent Tommy from descending further into a cycle of vengeance. Putting his sorrow aside temporarily, Tommy learns from Ada that John Hughes is the mole in their current operation. He immediately meets with the operation's overseer, Grand Duchess Isabella Petrovna, to inform her. Through Tatiana, Tommy states that he will deal with Hughes at no extra cost and warns Tatiana not to toy with his emotions. In Episode 4, the Shelby brothers, having grown somewhat distant in recent times, reunite for a hunting trip. Tommy informs them that their despicable father has passed away and urges everyone to forget him and focus on their unfinished business. He also reveals their plan to steal the 27 tanks through a large strike set to occur in Birmingham, with the Russians paying £150,000 along with diamonds and sapphires. Tommy then returns home and has a night of passion with Tatiana, during which she agrees to let him deal with Hughes. The next day, Tommy realizes the Russians might betray him, so he plans to break into their money storage to retrieve what rightfully belongs to him. However, Arthur's intrusive nature and apparent curse lead him to disclose the entire plan to Linda. Linda, in turn, stirs up the other women in the family against Tommy to secure a share of the loot once the operation concludes. Linda also makes her own deals regarding Arthur's share of the money to keep him away from violence. After dealing with the family drama, Tommy returns to his plan to assassinate Hughes, only to discover that Hughes had anticipated this move. The reason Hughes knew was that Polly had gone to church to confess her sins, unaware that the priest was Hughes's accomplice, who relayed Tommy's assassination plan to Hughes. Tommy falls into a trap, and Hughes's men brutally beat him until he is barely conscious. Hughes then threatens Tommy, demanding that he apologize in front of the operation's overseers. Exhausted but compliant, Tommy apologizes publicly and asks Ada to arrange a meeting with the Russian consulate. During this meeting, Tommy reveals Hughes's plan, to inform the consulate about the transaction, which would lead to bombing the train carrying the 27 tanks. This explosion would sever diplomatic relations and incite war. After disclosing this information, Tommy collapses, showing signs of severe head trauma. After the severe injuries Tommy sustained in the previous episode, it takes him 3 months to recover. With the operation approaching, Tommy must immediately return to prepare everything. First, he meets with Alfie Solomons to assess the value of the Russian jewelry to avoid being deceived. Meanwhile, Tommy and his brothers, after a night of revelry at the Russian jewelry estate, familiarize themselves with its layout, and Tommy hires someone to dig a tunnel directly to the jewelry storage for the heist. Polly, after a passionate night with her new partner, returns home to find that Michael has been drawn into the operation. She warns Tommy that the business will be jeopardized if her son's hands get dirty. In the season finale, the situation escalates beyond Tommy's control when his son is kidnapped by Hughes during a charity event Tommy is hosting. Hughes, once again fully aware of Tommy's plans, demands that Tommy hand over all the stolen Russian jewelry in exchange for his son's safety. Hughes also insists that Tommy should blow up the train carrying the tanks according to the original plan. Tommy agrees unconditionally. Realizing there is a mole within the Peaky Blinders, Tommy is furious with his family members. However, after careful consideration, he discovers that Alfie Solomons is the betrayer. With Michael's help, who kills Alfie's associate, Tommy forces Alfie to reveal the location where Hughes is hiding his son. To ensure safety, Tommy asks Arthur and John to interrogate the location of his son's captivity while he personally heads to the tunnel to expedite the progress. Tommy successfully breaks into the Russian storage and steals all the valuables. Meanwhile, Michael, tasked with killing Hughes to rescue Tommy's son, successfully carries out the mission, saving Charles. However, a tragic mistake occurs. Arthur and John are instructed to blow up the train if Michael fails to rescue Charles. Despite Michael's success, due to a delay in communication, the train is detonated, resulting in the explosion and the deaths of 6 innocent civilians on board. The season concludes with Tommy's heist of the jewelry turning out to be a private deal between him and Tatiana. She pays Tommy the agreed sum, but, instead of selling the jewelry, she unexpectedly kills the intermediary and takes the jewelry back to her family in her homeland. Upon returning home, Tommy begins to distribute the money from the operation among his family members. However, the resolution takes a shocking turn when the Shelby family is raided and arrested by the police. Season 3 of Peaky Blinders is a season filled with tension and drama, marked by complex schemes, betrayal, and tests of loyalty. The development of the main characters, especially Thomas Shelby, remains a crucial element that drives the show's allure and intrigue.